Hello, and welcome to today's NinjaTrader ecosystem event. What's your cost average? My name is Juanita, and I am the NinjaTrader ecosystem vendor support team lead in the NinjaTrader Denver office. Before we start today's webinar, I do have a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is presented by NinjaTrader LLC, which is the technology company responsible for developing and supporting the NinjaTrader trading software. Any brokerage-related questions should be directed to the NinjaTrader brokerage. If you are new to NinjaTrader, please make sure you sign up for a free NinjaTrader account, which includes access to 14 days of complimentary real-time market data. Our platform is always free for advanced charting, strategy backtesting, and trade simulation. Before I turn the mic over to Chad of Nash Technologies, it's important to understand that futures, foreign currency, and options trading contain substantial risks and is not suitable for every investor. It is possible to lose all or more funds than the initial investment. Risk capital is money that can be lost without jeopardizing one's financial security or lifestyle. Only risk capital should be used for trading, and only those with sufficient risk capital should consider trading. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Also, please remember that these training sessions are not a solicitation nor a recommendation, but simply educational in nature. Thank you again for joining us today, and without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome to the NinjaTrader webinar room, Chad of Nash Technologies. Go ahead and take it away, Chad.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you very much for the introduction. Welcome and thank you guys again. Today's session, I hope you get something out of this, something very beneficial. Cost Average Strategy Agent, or CASA for short. Before we go into too much detail, a similar disclaimer and risk disclosure you can also find on our website. But future stock, spot currency trading, large potential rewards, but also large potential risk. Please remember that past performance may not be indicative of future results. And just very bottom line is we are a software company. We are not an investment or any financial advice. This is for non-investment related content. So as we move forward, keep that in mind, as well as the disclaimer that NinjaTrader is a registered trademark of NinjaTrader Group, LLC. No NinjaTrader company has any affiliation with Nash Technologies. So appreciate them hosting this, though. This is our second time being doing a vendor spotlight. I appreciate their community involvement. So just a little bit about me as we get started. I've been in the software development business for 20 plus years. I'm president and CEO of Data Springs. This is an old picture of staff and friends back in Vegas, and I no longer look like the picture on the right. I don't know, that looks kind of like the high school glamour shots photo, but it's good, makes me smile. Over the years, I've been involved in many different companies. I'm a serial entrepreneur, author of the book Lying in the Cubicle. I've been featured in Forbes, Huffington Post, many different different businesses, and kind of a serial entrepreneur. I also travel a lot. I'm in Kauai at the moment. If you've never been here, it's a beautiful, beautiful island. But I've done 89 countries. There was a period where all I did was travel without a home for many years. So scuba diving, sailing, that's my life. And with all of that, I love trading. Trading crypto, futures, equities, and I actively trade with algo, with our tools, with CASA that we'll go into here in a minute. And for equities, I trade directly with interactive brokers through NinjaTrader. For futures, I use the Continuum NinjaTrader brokerage. So if you ever want to visit our website, it's nashtech.xyz. You can also find more information on what we're going through today at nashtech.xyz/CASA or nashtech.xyz/results. So we here at Nash Tech believe that algo trading is not just for the big guys, not just for the fast supercomputers and PCs and the big institutions. And it seems like very often as we're trading, our emotions get involved. We're either not there for the right setup that we know would, we really feel would play out well, but we're just not there for it. And that's again why I really love algo trading, because I can be anywhere. So, sometimes I trade best when I'm not available to be anywhere. I mean, by the trading desk, right? So I'm sure you've been in trading positions where you think, man, I wish I kind of would have slept in today, and I would have been a lot more profitable. I just left my orders where they were at and slept in, and now look what happened, right? Because we get emotional with our trades. So um, today we're going to be going through an application I wrote myself throughout the last year called CASA. We call it house internally in our offices too, but it stands for Cost Average Strategy Agent. So um, CASA will trigger trades based on the most epic entries that it finds, to be the best entries. Will go into that, and then basically cost averages your entries, and based on your risk level, there's a lot of settings that you can adjust for that. So what is dollar cost average? I think most traders know. We've also been in situations where it's helped us, and we've been in situations where it has not helped us, right? So if you go long at the NES at 4,000, let's say the price drops to 3,900, you add another entry, your now average is 3,950. So sometimes and very often that works well, right? Because you're averaging the cost, and it works great when you're in a range and you add 3 entries, you add 4 entries, the price comes back where you're in profit. What tends to happen is as you trade with emotions, or you get greedy, or you don't want to cut your losses. Really what happens to me a lot is if I'm trading manually, price moves somewhere that I really did never think it was going to move, right? It's going to be, maybe it's trading in a range. I trade the MNQ a lot. And then you think, well, price would never go over here. And then it does. And then you're in a pretty big situation when you've got a lot of contracts. So dollar cost average does not work so well when you're trading with emotion, or when it's moved outside of your comfort zone. So with cost averaging, CASA is a NinjaTrader strategy that cost averages into the position with key entry and exit, with hedges, with parabolic entries. We'll go into a lot of these, but just to kind of give you an idea compared to other setups and other strategies in NinjaTrader, and kind of what sets this apart is that it's not really meant to be an intraday magical candlestick 5-minute moving. It's not just following a lot of the same old tools and setups. So it allows for trades to play out over a short period of time, and it's not meant to be closed out like many strategies close out end of day. From my experience, that just is not always as consistent with where price might go in the day. So it's meant to be a multi-day strategy. So with CASA, there's different methods of initial entry. I'm just going to talk about probably primarily one today. The others, I'm going to talk about epic candles and epic price. It's like where price is at. It also has the option to trade near highs and lows, maybe reversing from those highs and lows, or just only when volume is 400% greater. You could specify all of the parameters around that. And then there's also more generic methods it can trade for the entry. You might be more used to stochastics or moving averages, even the candlestick patterns. You can use those as initial entry for your initial first entry before you start adding the cost averages. So today I'm going to talk to you about epic candle. This is kind of something that I came up with when I was trading over the last few years manually, and it basically is different for each instrument, but it's kind of like where price likes to hang out, and it's really either a range or a divisible number. Like for example, people just like round numbers, like period. So people like to say, oh, the ES is above 4,000. Oh, the Dow's bouncing off 30,000. Is it going to hold? Right? They tend to like round numbers. And that tends to often work as support and resistance. There's a very good amount of time where you will see the ES trade between 3,800, 3,850, 4,000, 3,900. Why not 3,921? Why not like 3,872? Well, I don't know. People like round numbers. So that kind of got me thinking when we first integrated this, and we would have epic candle, which is a divisible number. So 100 I use on the MNQ. So it would enter when it gets to around 12,900 or 13,000, 13,100, things like that. And actually this screenshot was taken at least a month ago, maybe more. And if you look, where is price right now? Price literally just bounced. I think I was looking at the charts on the MNQ right at 13,000, right? And I think for the MES, right around 50 increment. I don't trade the MES as much, but price tends to go and retrace back to some of these key areas. And it also makes it easy because you're not having to always know where the support level, where resistance level 2 is at, where it's going to bounce from. It's very likely an area that it will be retraced or hang around. And the idea with this initially was when a price gets to 13,000, it tends to go in both sides of that price. So the idea initially was really to just get a smaller portion of a profit target with a much larger stop loss, because you're going to cost average in. And that's quite different than a lot of other setups, because a lot of other setups, they want to have your risk level at maybe 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 2-to-1. And this kind of works opposite. You're wanting this to play out and giving it some breathing room while you're also going for a smaller profit target than the stop loss. This is just kind of highlighting again. And I encourage you on your own charts to check it out and just look at how much price tends to hang out as the MES hanging out around 40.50 in this screenshot. Also back around 4,000. I think we all, if you traded manually, that it's pretty common for price to hang out in those areas. In this case, just another example, it's bouncing off the 39.50, coming back up. Hasn't touched the 4,000, but that's where CASA would make the initial entry. Same thing in gold and other types of instruments. Tends to trade in increments of 10. Things like, it's more significant if it's 100 or 50 value. I mean, when gold was hitting 2,000, that has become a real resistance until now it's almost support the last few weeks. So again, I like this for entry because you're not relying specifically on numbers and resistance levels that change constantly. So now you have an entry point. What direction are you going to go? You're going to go long or short? There's a few options for that. We have an API where we have our bias on which direction. We follow this daily. We trade daily on 2 different servers. The most common is momentum or reverse momentum. So that's using the momentum indicator through NinjaTrader. You can set the period, and that's going, if you're setting a high low as the entry, you may want to do reverse momentum, and that's going to, it's going to basically knows you're at a high. It's going to go short because it's going reverse momentum. You can also use EMA as which direction. You can also use depth of market. So that what that does is it'll actually tell you what's lined up. So it'll say, oh, there's a lot more sellers. Let's go short because there's a lot more sellers than buyers. And then it has momentum as the backup if it was the same. So with cost average strategy agent, there's lots of features. We're only going to cover about 10%. But you could choose, some of the key ones are maximum total entries. You can choose how many bars between entries. Like, we need to, let's say you want to wait at least 100 bars on maybe a 3-minute candle. So you're waiting until that happens before another entry would take place. You can choose, only parabolic price changes. So maybe I only want to enter if price has changed drastically 300 points since my initial entry. You can also choose to have each of those entries have its own profit target or use the original. Many features. You can also, choose to only trade the direction of VWAP. You can also opt out various features. I don't want to get into all of those, and they can be a little confusing and overwhelming, to be honest, but they're there. So as you get more and more involved with your setup, those features are there to help you. Why do I love CASA? So again, I built this because I was trading and sick of so many setups where they do close end of day, and then the next morning you think, oh man, if we had just held on, what a difference a day makes, right? Or an afternoon makes, especially in the last few months of trading. So it just makes sense, right? Like in a way, it makes sense that over time, letting something play out and feeling comfortable with your risk level, we'll get into that, but feeling comfortable, it makes a lot of sense. These are some screenshots again that kind of were just highlighting where an entry might take place. So it's taking place right at the 13,000. Like I said, this was probably a chart maybe a month ago because I had to submit this for approval with NinjaTrader. So I think again, price is around there right now. So it entered there, and it has colors for where and why it would enter and for what condition and things like that. You can enable or disable. And then the profit target was reached up there. For the MNQ, that's not a huge move. I mean, it's less than 100 points. But if it had went the other direction, it would have cost averaged in. So another example on the MES. Curious how many of you guys trade MES versus MNQ. I feel like my heart is with the MQ, but I don't always love it. That's where it's at. Here's another example where it went short on the MES, and you see it right at 39.50, and it actually had an early exit. We'll talk about early exits here in a second. It's probably more common to have an early exit with CASA than it is to exit with a profit target or a stop loss. So this isn't showing any type of performance or back testing type profit. It's just showing that there's a lot of different types of entries, right? So you've got the epic long and short 2. That means that's the second dollar cost average or the third. And then you have the parabolic 1, parabolic 2. Those are options set that says, hey, if you have gone more than a certain range outside of my initial entry, go ahead and add more entries. And in this case, if you look at epic parabolic 2, we actually are adding 2 entries on the quantity. And that's just because prices moved so significantly. We believe, and we are, of course, with different risk levels, we believe the price will likely come back from a move that large at some point. There's early exits that we're going to get into, but again, the goal is smaller profit target with a larger stop loss, allowing the trade to play out over time. It does work as well with different instruments that have decimals in this case, because you're trading a lot. Sometimes if you're trading currencies or other things that use decimals, you're not going to be divided by 50 or 100 in those cases. And this is kind of giving you an example of those big moves I was just kind of highlighting in that screenshot. So if you have these disabled, they're never going to fire. But if you do have them enabled and the MNQ moves 600 points, you're going to add 3. If it moved 900 points and that's enabled, you're going to add 5 to cost average those in. That's quite a significant number, but that's also quite a significant move of 900. I mean, if that happens, and you were likely, I don't know, sleeping, you wake up, kind of wish you were in on that. And that's why it's good to have CASA there to help you out. Along with these dollar cost average entries and the parabolic entries, you are able to hedge with CASA. So 3 different types of hedges. And what these basically do is when you're in a certain level of profit or after a certain number, really if you're dealing with micros and you've got about 10 micro MNQs, you kind of relative to like one standard NQ, that's a pretty significant move. And you want to kind of start to hedge those entries. So there's 3 different types of hedge entries. One is when profit's already a certain level, or you have a certain number. So in this case, after $5 cost average entries, it would hedge for the MES in the opposite direction with a even smaller profit target tick. The idea is actually to get in and out of this hedge possibly multiple times, knowing you have the other entry as your backup. The thing about hedging in the last few weeks is that you also are dealing with market that's not really acting in the same. Just because the NASDAQ's up doesn't mean the MES is up, or just because the RTY is crashing doesn't mean the NQ is not going green. So, you take a lot of different risks. You'd have to decide what you felt would be a good hedge. So in this case, after 3 or more entries, this would hedge the YM against, I think this is probably on the MNQ. You can even hedge the same, like you could have MYM, the micro, and then hedge with a YM entry. So there's options with that. So why I love CASA again, it's great for algo. You can trade futures. It works great with multiple time frames. Sometimes with the metals, it back tests the best with gold and copper on maybe a 15-minute time frame. And I really like strategies that are not relying on, a 1-minute chart sort of setup that may or may not take place and the entry may or may not work out at the time. I also like it because it's doing what I would want to do without my emotion. It's doing what I would want to do if I look back later on a trade when I've gotten kind of caught up in a losing setup. And it doesn't really rely on candlestick patterns, and it can backtest on bar close, which is, I feel, more reliable than other backtesting, price change or on each tick, things like that. You can see a pretty significant list of results at nashtech.xyz/results. And I encourage you to check that out. That has equities, metals, currencies, everything that we trade on our systems. So early exit. These are the CASA staff, just kidding, working on getting you out of your position here. Do you like that image? So every time it's about to add a dollar cost average entry, it can look and say, oh, you're in profit this much, get out. It can also look and say, oh, it's set to $100 to exit early if it's leading stochastics overbought, oversold. Up, get out. There's several different. If the hedge entry is now an overall cost average, it's a high enough value, get out. So I believe that the vast majority of our trading is always early exits, because we're really using the dollar cost average to get it a better price, but it's a bit risky. When you have several different, the quantities going up, if a big move takes place, again, it's your risk level, but we really don't want to be in it. We don't want to have 10 contracts of the MNQ if we don't have to. We'd like to see, okay, we want to exit early. And we'll go with the next setup that comes around. We got in, we got out, we're happy. These equity curves I'm going to show you here in a little bit and talk about Strategy Analyzer. These are not showing any profit or any price. It's really just showing a good curve over time of what you're looking for, and what to look for in Strategy Analyzer is not really normally what you do with other setups. You're not just looking for profit factor. You're really looking for things like max recover time and average time in market. Because if you're trading twice a day and your average time in the market is 2 days, to me, with the setup we have, I don't mind that. That's okay. But if you're trading once a day, but your average time in the market 16 days, I don't really like that. I don't feel comfortable holding on to my trade for 16 days. I'm not sleeping as great at night, knowing that that's the average. So whenever you do start back testing and doing any other implementation with CASA, I would look for these types of numbers: recovery time, average time in market, more than I would pay attention to percent profitable or profit factors, things like that. This is a good example of an equity curve that does not look good, right? And you've got a very large amount of time in the market, and that doesn't look for anyone smooth at all. It's just basically like, oh, okay, it worked out well, but next time I'm not so sure. I look for as smooth as I can get equity curves. I think we already discussed the early exit options. Another beautiful, I don't know why I just love looking at beautiful equity curves. It's like kind of passion. Especially if it goes back multiple weeks, years, things like that. But again, we're just highlighting the slope here of what a great equity curve would look like. So additional considerations. There are a lot of different considerations with this, and I can tell you from my experience, you will run into them and then wonder, what to do in that situation. So for example, with currencies, trading NinjaTrader, we like to trade the micro 6A, 6E, 6B, and we feel it trades very well with CASA. The problem is you're going to want to call the broker and make sure that you're allowed, even it doesn't matter the size of the account, they have a max that we were not aware of, and the strategy would basically just disable if it was past 10. So make sure they basically say, well, you know what, if you wanted to trade the micro, M6E, just get one contract of the 6E, and then you have 10 basically micros. And that's not really how our strategy is set up. So you just have to call and make sure, hey, what's my, can we have 10, 15 entries, 20 entries? And maybe for your risk level, you don't want that many anyway, but it's something to consider. For the integration with Interactive Brokers integration works seamless for us with NinjaTrader. Anything else for equities does not work well. TD Ameritrade is a joke when it comes to integrating with our experience with NinjaTrader. It's just can't change the orders once it's placed, things like that. So with Interactive Brokers, you can also set it up to restart every night on its own so that you don't lose connection. And you want things running as smoothly as possible. And if you have any questions on that, reach out to me, because we have some experience with that, and we feel it works very well for equities with Interactive Brokers. If you normally trade minis, I would encourage you to trade micros, because when you're holding overnight, keep in mind your requirements for initial margin are going to be very different. And I would also say consider your unrealized losses and how comfortable you are with that risk level, because sometimes when we're trading, we look at maybe the back testing results and it shows, okay, this is probably going to work out if we hold on to this for a while. But in reality, you're not sleeping so well at night because, you got quite a few contracts, and you want to make sure that you don't close out thinking, oh, I know better than what's going to happen. You would like to feel comfortable leading the strategy enabled. I've had that problem in the past too. It's like, oh, I know better than the strategy that's well tested. Let me do this myself. And I would suggest relying on the strategy as much as you can, than jumping in with your emotions again. We have many templates. We've done significant back testing on a regular basis, many different time frames, probably 6 months back. Again, nashtech.xyz/results. So if you like to trade a specific instrument you don't see there, let us know. be happy to put it up to the test. Equities here, this is kind of showing MYM with a YM hedge, some examples, micro Bitcoin, micro gold. Volume spike is a really good entry level type 2. It's basically looking for a certain percentage of volume. There are email notifications you can have enabled. Going to show you, on maybe every so many hours or whatever the setting is set to, sort of where things are at with the trade. So with the NinjaTrader web and mobile, I think you'll be happy with that with CASA, because just because you're signing into the web or you're signing into the mobile app, you're not losing the ability to have the server connected to the NinjaTrader Continuum or Kinetics data feed. So you can still kind of monitor that without directly changing your connection to the data feed. We love the app. We love the new mobile platform, the new version. It's great. So CASA API and alerts, we'll quickly go through this so I can open things up to some questions. We also have a service we've launched called CASA Alerts, and basically integrates with API, so it sends out text and email. We can never find a reliable company we felt that we trusted for alerts for futures. There's so many different ones for stocks and equities and other things, but when it comes to the direction of where they believe, the indexes are going, we felt that to be honest, we just felt like we had a better bias than others. So besides the API, we've launched the Nash Tech CASA alerts, and you can get text or email notifications for that. And you can also have the API, which chooses the direction for you when it goes to make an entry with CASA. It would just go with our bias. Again, we trade exclusively with CASA each day. And with the CASA alerts, you also get access to kind of the weekly P&L summaries and what generated those results for those. And those are real time. So how to get started. nashtech.xyz/CASA, performance results, nashtech.xyz/results. You would set up a Zoom call with our staff and then just be ready to let the bot trade for you. Every purchase of CASA really does require our staff to kind of assist. We like to have a Zoom call with you to go over your trading plan and how you plan to use it, give you the best advice. There are some limitations on the economy and active licensing as far as the limit, but for a lot of people in different risk levels, you may only need to have a maximum of 5 entries on a single machine. I think you can get a lot more done with the higher end professional, especially with the parabolic entries option. So today we have a special offer available to everyone on the webinar. It ends this end of day today, but it's 50% off for the professional or enterprise licenses. You use NT Webinar 2023, and that's for the enterprise license, and that's just for today only, 50% off. Pretty good deal. And then also, if you do the annual subscription to CASA Alerts, you get 50% off. You would have to just contact us for a special link for that purchase, because we only have monthly set up on the site. Special offer number 2 is your custom bot at a much significant price difference, or 50% off our hourly support of 10 hours or more. You can look at our hourly rates, nashtech.xyz/hours, and that's limited to the first 3 clients, as we only have so much staff to get things going for you. Okay, so with that, what questions do we have? Let me open up the chat here. If you purchase one edition, later want to upgrade, yes, you can pay the price difference for the upgrade, but you would not be getting the discount. So if you purchased the professional and you later wanted the enterprise, we would give you the difference in price, but it would not include the discount. How soon can we schedule? At this point, you'd be able to schedule a Zoom call with our staff to get you up and running by probably the first week of May, a little sooner for an initial consultation, but then otherwise first week of May. Joe Tiz, can you run it on virtual private server? We run ours on Amazon servers. I don't know why. If you can have NinjaTrader trading on okay on on a server, you should be able to have the strategy running. Type of an AI, Greg, is this a smart bot type of AI that optimizes dollar cost average based on certain data that's not readily visible? At this time, we're open to adding things like this, Greg. It's not at the moment, changing that, but because it can also use our API, if we later integrate what that would be, I think more so on that, we need to have different levels of the API for intraday or for, maybe short-term bias, things like that. We have looked into other things like checking the VIX levels or relying on other things, or maybe opting out of certain news times when they're going to release the CPI report, things like that. But at this time, it's not using any type of AI. Drawdowns wouldn't be good for funding accounts. I'm not sure on the funding accounts if you're referring to like end of day. If you're doing anything that needs to close end of day, this strategy is not good for you in that case. I would say a lot of settings can change your risk levels on this, because you can choose to only have maybe 3 entries and only add every 3 days. You're going to have a very, very different setup than having 20 entries and trading every hour. You can use it for day trading. I would say this isn't really meant to be for day trading. It's really meant to be short-term range trading, because again, I would say day trading is you're in and out the same day, and it's not really meant to be that. Any other questions? I did not necessarily stop back testing at 1022, Daryl. I just had basically at one point it was like, let's go 6 months back. And we just kind of make that, some of it's timing. When you're back testing for 3 years back or optimizing on, maybe on currencies, it's no problem. But if you're optimizing 2 years back on the 3-minute chart for the MNQ, you got some time. So most of the tests we put up are all back from the same date as well, like 10/1 or 2022, just to give it a significant 6 months of timing. And at the same time, we didn't cherry pick. We didn't say, hey, let's show the results if we chose 9 on this strategy, but on this other one, let's choose 10. We just basically set all the dates to 10 on the ones we posted. The agnostic, do I have to pick? I'm not sure on this is also different than our other indicators. So if you're already a customer of our setup, we can get you a discount, but we don't have, it is different than our Epic collection. But you can you can absolutely, Dare, you can back test all the way to 2006 without any problems. In fact, if you have a couple setups on there, you want me to throw up and put up 2006 as the starting date, happy to do that for you. We do not support anything with TradingView at the moment. TradingView is great, but I've never really seen a true algo greatly working. It's usually results, not necessarily running. CASA bot cannot internally. I would say, yeah, Greg, based on what you're asking for like an AI for the dollar cost average, I can't change that. But again, that's why we like the Epic candle or the high low or the volume, is it's looking 300 bars back or 100 bars back for the most recent high low, or 400% spike in volume as an example. Or with the Epic candle, it's looking for price points you know, the MNQ is, we believe at this price level is going to have a 100-point, you know, is going to be significance for it. Same thing with the MES at a 50-point. Again, 3,800, 3,850, things like that. Yeah, so again, for Anton, so the direction again is chosen either using a number of options like momentum or reverse momentum, or EMA, things like that. Yeah, Joe, I mean, I think back testing 6 months is probably good for some, but if you need back tests for, you know, 3 or 4 years, I'm sure I feel pretty confident that it can handle. And also, I think for anyone using this, we encourage you to change a lot of parameters. The more parameters you can change and back test, and it still comes out some fairly decent results, that to me means a lot more than changing from 5 to 6 minutes and all of a sudden all your results and back testing are completely different. It'd be nice, the more you change, if you still have consistency. There's somebody asking about a recording. Mark, if you see CASA, it's actually a new product of ours. So you would actually just go to nashtech.xyz/CASA. Oh, got it. I wouldn't trust Vishal. I wouldn't necessarily trust any backtesting results. I would, at best, I would use it on sim and watch it play out yourself and see, is this something I would manually want to trade? Because I think it's very, very easy to get almost addictive to finding the right profitable analyzer results. And it's actually not great in the long time to spend all your time doing that. So I think trade it, use it as you would, you know, think it should be, like what makes sense in your head, and then go with that. I would use it as more like starting parameters that you felt comfortable with on a sim account. Okay, if there's any other questions, you can find us on the Contact Us Nash Tech website. And besides that, I would say mahalo from Hawaii, and thank you guys for joining.
Thank you again to Chad of Nash Technologies for taking time to share with us today. If you enjoyed today's session, we hope to see you in future events. Follow us on the NinjaTrader social media for alerts about upcoming events and other NinjaTrader ecosystem news. We'd like to remind you the information provided in this was that of Nash Technologies and not of NinjaTrader. All information was and is for educational purposes and should not be construed as trading advice. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope to see you in future webinars. Happy trading from everyone here at the NinjaTrader ecosystem. Thank you, Chad, again, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks. See you guys.